In this video, I'm going to show you the music marketing strategy that I use to promote my latest single, Chains, to get about 24,000 streams 2 weeks after release day. So the main way that I promote my music is by using Facebook ads. So I'm going to show you everything I do to set up the campaign so you can replicate the same thing yourself. So first of all, let's dive into the Spotify for Artists details a little bit more. So the way these campaigns run, just to kind of get you set up, is that I start off running the day the song comes out. And I put in the biggest budget towards the first 3 days, and then I have a kind of taper it down a bit over the first week, and then I taper it down again over time until I hit my desired budget. And the reason that I do that is because it gives a big surge of traffic when the song comes out, which encourages algorithmic playlists, like for example Release Radar, to give me a lot more coverage than my audience actually is at the moment. So Release Radar has two forms. One form is the song gets shown to your followers, and the second form is a big surge of traffic from people who aren't your followers. And this is what this is. Like, I would never normally get 2,200 streams from Release Radar just for my audience, because that's my whole audience on Spotify is like 2,200 people. So this is for people who have not followed me. That gives you a surge of traffic, which helps you get on Discover Weekly, which this song already is on Discover Weekly. It starts off small, it'll ramp up over time. That I'm quite confident on. So let's dive into Facebook ads, and I'll show you how all of this works. So this is the campaign, which I'll walk you through after to show you kind of the things I specifically did. But first, let me actually show you how to set up the campaign and the way that I do it. So if I hit create inside of Facebook ads, I use a conversion campaign. And if you're not familiar with conversions, basically it's a way of measuring events on a page. You don't want to use traffic. You'll get horrible results if you use traffic to send people straight to Spotify. You get a lot of bots, you get a lot of people who don't really care. It almost always fails nowadays. It used to work in the past, so if you've seen some of my old videos, you might have seen me using it. Conversions are a way of kind of tracking the process. So if I go to the page that I send people to, this is what's known as a landing page. People get here and they choose their service. Now, 95% of people are going to end up going to Spotify because I'm targeting for Spotify later on in the process. And only when someone clicks this button, or really any of these buttons, but pretty much this button, it'll tell Facebook, hey, we got a conversion. And that's great. That's what we want, because it's going to weed out all those bots that come with the link click campaigns, and it's going to require an extra step. That means that by the time someone gets to Spotify, they really want to listen to the song, you know. So we can just set a daily budget. You know, if you have like a $300 budget for your whole song, you might start with like $25 for the first few days and then ramp it down. This is just a test, so I'm just going to put in a random number. Always make sure to leave campaign budget optimization on, at least for this type of campaign. So you can see we're kind of working down this structure on the side. The campaign is what houses the entire campaign. It's where you set your budget, and it's where you set your goal, conversions, and whatever amount per day. Next, we go into the ad set, and that's where you define our audience and our event. So my page is a little squished right now, but if I X this out, this is where you choose the conversion event. Now, I'm using Hyped It here. You could also use ToneDen. ToneDen will let you make a page like this for free with a pixel embedded, and it works just as good. Now, I'm just going to click Hyped It Smart Link Click because that's what I'm using, but you'll use View Content if you're using ToneDen. And if you don't have a pixel set up, they're entirely free. Just go to your business tools and events manager to set up your pixel. Now, there's a lot of stuff in here you don't have to worry about. You can just leave as default. But a very important thing is the kind of audience section here. So you don't want to go with just United States, especially when you're starting off. It's better just to go for pretty much every Spotify country, with the exception of India. So that's what this pre-saved list I have is. If you want to find that, just Google Spotify countries, and they have a list of all their countries. So just get them all in there and then save the list, and you'll have it. Now, for my particular demographic, I usually do 15 to 50-ish. You know, it's going to depend on your style of music. When I start the campaign, I turn off detailed targeting expansion. What that feature does, it lets Facebook go outside your targets to try to find potential cheaper options. Sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes it's not. So I start with it off, and if I want to do an improvement later, I'll create another audience, and I'll turn it on. And you'll see that when I go through the actual campaign for this song. So first of all, I typically start off by narrowing by people who are interested in Spotify, of course. Now I can narrow my audience to have this find people who are interested in Spotify and something else. Now, the Spotify target, a lot of people say that's not necessarily people who have Spotify. And while that's true, there's a Facebook integration with Spotify, and anyone that shares a Spotify link on Facebook, like they can kind of figure out who has Spotify and who doesn't. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty good, and it'll get better and better as your campaign runs at figuring out who actually has Spotify. So now is where you type in your actual targets, meaning one of the targets I used in here, I think, was Justin Bieber, which is a weird one for me. But this is kind of like whatever artist you think the fans of that artist will like your music. The song doesn't sound like Justin Bieber, but I thought fans of the song would like the vocalist I had on the track. This was a collaboration track with Adamant, who is an awesome singer and also producer. But, you put in there whatever you want. I think I also tried Chainsmokers. And there's other strategies you can do, genres and a bunch of other stuff. It's kind of crazy. Now, in the past, I used to advise going for manual placements. And actually, if you go back in the day, I used to only run on the stories placements. And then after time, I added some feed placements. But then after some time again, I just switched to just doing automatic placements. And that actually cut my cost in half. So pro tip for all of you watching, this is my current way of doing it. It also is easier. So now we just click continue. There's a lot of little buttons, places like schedule and ad spend limits that I don't really touch. So just leave that stuff for default unless you have a specific need for it. Now this page here is where you actually create your ad. You go and you select your Facebook page and your Instagram page. And typically, you go to add media, add your video. You'll add your link, which for me will be the hyped it link. For you, it could be the toned in link. And you can also add what I recommend, finding some kind of quick and catchy caption that's related to your song, maybe the story or maybe just the style. This is kind of up to you and your creativity. You get to have some fun here, right? You get to try different things. Now, after you upload the video, I'm not going to do it now because this is a test. You'll get to preview all your campaigns, and you might have to crop them a little bit differently. But that's where you'll actually handle it. Okay, so now let's dive into the actual campaign that I set up for the song chain. So here we have a campaign, and we're optimizing for a hyped it goal because they're using conversions. If I click it here, we're going to go into the ad sets. And I mentioned that you could have multiple audiences with different targeting options, and that's what you see here. These are just different ad sets. Each ad set has its own set of ads. So there's a ton of ads here, but if I highlight one of these ad sets and go over into ads, you'll see that I just had 4 different ads that I have inside of each ad set, and those are duplicated across each audience, and that's just kind of the way I do it, and it helps a lot. And you can see, maybe not with all of these, but let's see, what's the most popular one here in terms of results? I guess pop music is killing it. Wow. So if I look at the cost per result, verse 2 is 8 cents, and pendulum copy 22, and drop 2 20, verse 1 18, and some people don't realize the impact that the actual ad creative can make. But this shows this shaved off like 60% or 50% of the cost compared to the other options. And you might be thinking, wow, these ads must be very different. And you'd be wrong, because if I open up this ad, verse 1, and I'll mute my browser so you don't hear it, but I'll play it, and you can see, okay, very simple ad. It just zooms into the picture of the artwork, and that's about it. Now, if my thing is being very small here. If I go over here, I can actually navigate to the different ads. So if I look at drop 2, it's the same thing. And if I go to verse 2, which was the one that was doing the best, it's the same thing. Now, the actual difference, and I'll turn the audio back on. Actually, I won't do that. The only difference is they're different parts of the song. With the same visuals, just different parts of the song. Because I didn't know out of the first verse, the drop of the song, or the second verse, which one is going to captivate an audience. How could you ever guess that? You might assume it's the chorus, which in this case is the drop, but it turns out that the second verse actually was more than twice as effective compared to the other ones. And since the visuals are the same, the only difference is the song. So the music is actually what mattered, which I think is kind of a happy message for that. So that's the first thing I want to point out that's important. So when you're making your campaign, use multiple ads, and then use multiple ad sets, because these audiences also make a staggering difference. And again, I have all these different targets. There's pop music, the Chainsmokers, Shawn Mendes, Justin Bieber, Ed Sheeran, a retargeting campaign, and pop music just targeting the USA. And one cool thing about this is people are like, Andrew, I don't want to target all of these like third world countries or whatever. And it's not. I'm targeting all of those Spotify countries, but I mean, the top ones, Brazil, United States is pretty much tied with Brazil. Taiwan and Mexico, like maybe those aren't like the biggest, most industrial countries in the world, but like Germany, Spain, Italy, like this is a pretty diverse mix of countries. It's not all about just targeting these far off countries that like don't have the ability to like, I don't know, have Spotify or listen or buy music or something. You know, it's these are real people. So keep that in mind. The United States is very high for those of you that are worried about it. So if I look at the costs of all of these, we have the cost per result column here. And we have the best one is pop music at 9 cents per conversion. And remember, a conversion isn't a stream. A conversion is a listener. And if I go to the stats for this song, there's 6,300 listeners, 24,000 streams. So it's like a four streams per listener so far. And the save rate is very high. It's like almost 50%. And it's also in these algorithmic playlists, which actually reduces the save rate quite a lot. So you can see the gigantic impact that these different audiences can have. In this case, they're all pretty good, but even the difference between 9 cents and 12 cents can really add up if you're spending hundreds of dollars on an ad campaign. Now, the one cool thing, I mentioned the United States. This United States audience right here is 15 cents per conversion. That's super good. And this is where I mentioned that the detailed targeting expansion can come in real handy, because if I go into the settings for this, it's just the United States. I'm targeting Spotify and pop music with detailed targeting expansion turned on. That's the only difference between these two different pop campaigns, is that it has detailed targeting expansion turned on, and it's just targeting the US. But that is kind of the entire campaign. So some of you might be thinking, whoa, Andrew, you're $350. I don't want to spend $350 on this campaign. Well, actually, this is only half because the other half's running on the other artists on this song. So right now, we've spent like $700 in this campaign so far, but I'm expecting this song to get 200,000 streams. And when you do the math for that, it comes out to roughly $800 for the total income for it, not counting the Apple Music, not counting any like random YouTube revenue or other sites, and the long-term impact of followers following you on Spotify and your social media accounts. And I honestly think it's going to do better than that. And the reason why I have those numbers is because if I look at my Spotify account, I can look since 2015, I like 120,000 streams for this song, 100,000 streams for this song, and still rising every day. So I think it's reasonable to assume it's going to hit that and actually pay itself back in the long term. And that's how you need to think about it too. You don't have to spend the amount of money that we're spending on this song. Even a $100 campaign can really work wonders. And if you check out this video right here, that's actually an example of a $100 campaign that went really well. And if you want to learn more like in depth about how to do all this stuff, you can check the link in the description to buy my course, where I teach every excruciating detail of how to do this. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.